And I will play. Okay, does everyone see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let me get rid of, okay. So the presentation is about starting seeds indoors. This is my setup. It's not fancy, but it does the job. I have 2 rows of lights, and we actually have one on the top level. We have a heating pad, which helps a great deal, but doesn't have to be like this. Okay. So, what I want to tell you is there are handouts to this presentation, and so like this is a big slide that's boring. I'm not going to sit there and read it, but it has information in it. So you can, the librarian will have this whole entire presentation as a PDF that you can download, and it has links. See on the top there, it has a link. You could click on the link and it'll bring you to more information, or you could just use it as notes. Okay.
Donna, I just want to let you know I put it in the chat. So the links are in the chat.
Okay. Everyone hear that?
Yes.
Okay. So why do you start seeds inside? The good about it is you have a lot of control over the seeds. You can track the germination rate. You have control over the heat, and you have control over the environment. I'm trying to make this little thing smaller. I can't. Okay, the bad part about it is it requires a decent amount of space in a fairly warm room. Starting seeds outside, the good part is it's quick, it's easy, it's simple. The bad part is you have the birds eating your seeds, you have the little critters eating your seedlings, you have to worry about weeds, what's coming up as an actual plant, what's coming up as a weed, and you have to rely on the weather. So the best reason to start seeds indoor is you get a really good head start on your plants. You get these nice, healthy plants that you grew, you knew what's in the soil, you know what type of plant it is. And the reason to grow your own plants from seed is it's much cheaper than going to a nursery, and you have a much wider variety. Like at Home Depot, you could buy 3-4 types of tomatoes. With seeds, there are hundreds and hundreds types of tomatoes you could start. Okay, these are the supplies you need. You need some sort of substrate, some soil. You need a container, you need markers, you need seeds, you need a light source, you need heat source, and you need patience. Okay, your potting mix. Again, I'm not going to read all that. A soilless seed starting mix is made up of vermiculite, perlite, and coconut coir. It has no soil in it, but it's a very fine texture and it holds moisture, and it's the optimum way to grow seeds. Doesn't mean that's what you have to use. It's the best thing, but you don't have to use it. You can use potting soil. Potting soil is okay. It's a bit heavier. The good part about it is you don't have to transplant your seeds as quickly. But for the best optimum germination of your seeds, you should use a soilless seed, a soilless potting mix. And do not use topsoil. You could use compost, but don't use topsoil. Topsoil is dirt. It's very heavy. It's sand, it's clay, and a little bit of organic matter. Okay, we use a soilless potting mix, which again is coconut coir, vermiculite, and perlite. All right, you need container. You could use anything as a container. My girlfriend uses egg cartons, and she gets great results, but you could use anything. This year, we're gonna try and use soil blocks, where you don't even have a container, it's just a block, and then it sits on a little ledge of water. You could use yogurt cartons. The most important thing is it has drainage. And excuse me. It has drainage and it has a saucer. You need markers. because believe me, you'll forget what you planted. You will. I planted things and say, oh, I'll mark it tomorrow. Next day, I forgot what I planted. And make sure your markers are going to hold up, because you could barely read that marker. You need seeds. You could get seeds from your local store. You could get them online. You could get them from friends and neighbors. And they even have a seed exchange at the library. Just be careful if you get them like at Job Lot or the dollar store, that they aren't expired. Do seeds expire? It depends on the seed, and it depends on how they were stored. If you think your seeds are expired, you should do a germination rate. Like if you get old seeds, if you buy new seeds, you don't have to do this, but if you get old seeds, you should do a germination rate. And what you do is you take 10 seeds, put them on a moist paper towel, either fold it or roll it, mark it, and put it in a sealed Ziploc bag. Put that Ziploc bag like on top of the refrigerator, someplace warm. And in 10 to 12 days, you should get something. So out of that 10 seeds, one of them was a dud. The reason you use 10 seeds is because 9 of them sprouted. So it's 9 out of 10. You have a 90% germination rate. If 7 of them sprouted, you had a 70% germination rate. It just makes it easy. If you have less than 70% germination rate, you should get new seeds. You don't have to, but you're not going to get a good rate of seeds coming up. You should read your seed package. Your seed package will tell you everything. It tells you your expiration date, when to plant, how to plant, your plant height, if you need full sun, if you need shade, the depth of the seeds, and the size of the plant. So like on the top left-hand side, the snapdragons, you shouldn't start them until 12 weeks before your last frost. On the bottom right, oh, it was your top left. On the bottom right, you could see coleus. You do not cover the seeds because it needs light to germinate. So your seed packet will tell you how to grow the seeds. If you don't, like if a friend gives you seeds, Google it. Because there are some things, some other stuff you have to know, like you have to stratify or scarify your seeds. Again, you could go back and read that. Scarification is when you have a really hard shell on your seed, like a sunflower or a gourd. They have a shell on top of their seed. Now, if you don't nick it or soak it, it's going to germinate. It's just going to take a lot longer. So like this picture, she rubbed it on sandpaper and it just cracked the shell, and you could see the flesh on the inside, the embryo. And so now when you plant that, it'll get wet faster and it'll germinate faster. These are gourd seeds. If you nick the seed, it'll germinate faster. If you don't, it will still germinate, but it'll take at least 3 to 4 weeks longer. But be careful how you treat the seed, how you nick the seed. You don't want to damage that embryo inside the seed. Okay, now that's scarification, and you can remember that by your scarring the seed. Stratification is many seeds need a dormancy period. The embryonic inside needs a dormancy period, and it won't grow unless that dormancy period is broken. So you can place the seeds in a bag with slightly moist towel and put it in your refrigerator, the drawer of your refrigerator, for like 4 to 6 weeks. And then when you take it out, you're breaking the dormancy. The picture on the bottom right, that person is actually germinating milkweed seeds in the refrigerator in water. And you can do that because they need a cold period. Seeds that need that stratification can be started outside in winter sowing in the milk jug method. They act like little tiny greenhouses. If you're interested on how to do this, there are tons of videos, and there's the links. When you get the PDF, you could just click on it and you could see tons of videos on how to do the milk jug winter seed sowing method. Okay, so let's get started. First, you have to moisten your soil. If you're using soilless seed starter, you can't just put that in a container and then water it. It'll make a mess. Your seeds will fly out all over the place. You have to pre-moisten it. You stick it in a bag, you put water in the bag, you squish it around, and then you'll be able to feel when it's like mud. Because it's vermiculite, perlite, and coconut coir, it doesn't get wet. It's amazing. It doesn't get wet. You have to actually squish it to get it wet. So then you fill your containers, you plant your seeds. If you plant the seeds like on the left, 4 in a little cell, nice and neat, you can tell how many came up. You could tell the germination rate. If you plant them like on the right, all thrown in there, it's still good, except you just won't really be able to tell, and you're going to have to thin them out more. My husband does it like on the left. I do it like on the right. Okay, you could label your containers. You have to label your containers because you're going to forget what you planted, unless you just plant one thing. All right, okay, you have to check that they're damp. See the water on the bottom? They should stay damp. You do not let your seeds dry out. That's the worst thing you could possibly do. You have to keep them damp. You need a light source. Fortunately, most seeds don't require light to germinate. They do require heat. So you don't have to put them in the light until you see a little bit of green. So there's our light source, but you could use natural light. This is our heating. We have a heating pad. It's made for seed starting. We have a heating pad underneath all the containers, and seeds that you plant outside that take like a week to germinate, they'll germinate in 3 days with this heating pad. It's amazing. It's the best thing my husband ever bought. But you don't need all that. My girlfriend does this. She has a bright window and she has a radiator underneath. So the room is warm and it's very bright light. But not everyone has a big room like that. Okay, now your seeds start to stick their heads up. You could celebrate. The first leaves that come up are called, I don't know how to say it, cotyledons. They're the first leaves. They're not really leaves. They're really the inside of the embryo that feed the leaves. The second set of leaves, these are the first true leaves, but they're the second leaves that come out. And they'll be the true color of the plant and the true shape of the leaves. You have to wait till you get those second set of leaves, which are called the first set of true leaves. You see on this tomato plant, the first set of leaves are basically generic, and the second set are starting to look like tomatoes. Once you get those second set of leaves, you have to start thinning out your plants, because all those plants in the left-hand side are fighting for what little soil is in that cell. So you could let them grow. Those are just the first set of leaves. You want to wait till you get the second set of leaves, and then you pull out the weakest plant. Like that those cells there, that artichoke is flopped over, that you would pull out, because then the second one in that cell will grow much stronger. I hate doing this. And I go downstairs and my husband has these beautiful little tomatoes on the floor. And I take them and I stick them in water and then I replant them, which is the stupidest thing to do, but I can't stand it. And I get these wilty little tomatoes. Now, granted, that tomato was ripped out by its roots, but look at the difference. These are the same age tomatoes, and his plant, even if he didn't rip it out, it would not have been as good as his plant. You have to thin out your plants. Okay, so once you thin them out, and you can see on the left, each cell has one, sometimes you could have two, but you should have no more than 2 plants per little cell. And they have their second set of leaves, and they're a little bit taller. You should transplant them to a bigger pot and use better soil, because again, the soilless seed starting mix really has no nutrients in it. The seeds are working off whatever was in their little, the plant is working off whatever was in their little seed. That's all the nutrition they're getting. So as soon as they get their second set of leaves and they're a little bit tall, transplant them and use good soil. Okay, you can't plant them outside until you have no frost at night. Usually in our area, it's right around Mother's Day. It's usually May 15th. The last couple of years, it's been much earlier because it's warmer. I'm not too sure about this year because it's pretty cold out there. But you have to watch the weather. And every yard has its own microclimate. So if I've been watching the weather and I know my yard and it's very sunny and I haven't gotten any frost on my plants, I could plant. But someone else in the neighborhood in three blocks away, they may still be getting frost on their ground. So you have to watch, you have to know your garden, your area. Okay, and do not start your seeds too early. Read your seed packets when you have to start, because you're going to end up with these big plants. And where are you going to put these plants? This picture was taken probably the end of March last year. These are big plants, and you still have 2 more months that you have to deal with. I don't have that much room, but we have a greenhouse. So we could put them in the greenhouse and it won't get frost in there. I can't put them in the greenhouse now because it's not a heated greenhouse and it still gets cold and it still goes down to freezing. But I could put them in April. As long as it doesn't freeze at night and you don't get frost, wherever you put them is fine. So if you don't have a greenhouse, don't start your seeds too early. Don't start them before they say. See how scraggly these are pumpkin seeds, pumpkin plants. See how tall and long they are? They're getting very leggy because they're stretching for the light. No way are those going to make it. They were started way too early. You have to read your seed packets. On the top, the snapdragons, it says 12 weeks before the last frost. Don't start them until 12 weeks before May 15th. At the bottom seed packet on the right, this is great. It says in a shorter growing season, start your gourds 3 to 4 weeks before, and it even tells you to speed up germination, soak your seeds overnight. You could nick them and then soak them. So your seed packets tell you how to grow your seeds. Okay, then you have all these beautiful plants and you want to transplant them outside. So you take them, yes, and you stick them outside, and that's what you're going to end up with. Because it's like you going to the beach for the first time after a cold winter. You go, you sit on the beach, and you're going to get burnt. You can't just take your beautiful little seedlings and stick them outside. You have to harden them off. You have to acclimate your plants to survive the wind, the sun, and the cold. And this explains how to harden them off. 7 to 10 days before you put them outside, you start them in the shade, and then you bring them back inside. Then a couple more days, then you put them in the sun, and then you bring them back inside. If it's cold, you can cover them or you bring them inside. If you could do this, you can make like little hoop houses, which are very inexpensive. They're just pipes, plumbing pipe, and either a sheet, or you could buy material that goes over it. And so you could open it up during the day. The sun hits it, not the full day, right at first, because you'll sunburn them. And then you close it up and you open it up and you increase the time. And then at night you close it so you don't get any frost. This is a very inexpensive way if you have the space. These are great, these little patio greenhouses. And these, the plastic ones, are very inexpensive. They work wonderful to harden your seeds off. Once they're hardened off, then you could plant them outside. Now here's a tip for tomatoes. This is really only good for tomatoes. You see on the left, you have all those little hairs on that tomato stem. Those are really all little roots. So normally when you transplant something, you transplant it to the same height as the dirt in the seed packet. But tomatoes, if you drop it all the way down to just before the first set of leaves, all those little hairs will turn into roots and it'll become a much stronger plant. And that's a tomato tip. Okay, why start your plants from seeds? Mainly people start seeds to get a jump on the garden season. You get a lot more varieties and you can grow a lot more plants for a lot less money. And what else is there to do during self-isolation? So good luck. And here again are some more helpful hints. It's really very easy and everyone should try it. And even if you start your seeds too early, don't just throw them out. Try and keep them alive until you could put them outside.